God bless you and welcome. Dios le bendiga y bienvenido to our teaching today. Yes, we finally got through for our Sabbath teaching. We put one on the books. We've been uploading. What's happening behind the scenes is we have still some backlog from the summer, or at least from last season, which throughout the summer I was unable to get uploaded, and therefore, because of other pressing, urgent matters that everyone should be taking care of for themselves, also, in your neck of the woods. And so now I'm trying to play catch up. So everything's getting uploaded to Roku and to Amazon Fire TV, and that is causing obviously delays in my broadcasting the extra stuff outside of the Sunday teachings, and also those are backed up as well. So we're trying to catch up every time. Every time the weekend comes in, still in the urgent mode here. Few things, loose ends that had to be taken, still need to be finished, finalized, and other things that we have developed that we have to do and finish up on. Also, the one of my workshops is still, like a third the way through, and I'm saying that to be what do you call, gratuitous, to say the least. So, tengo mucho tareas, por eso las enseñanzas no están siendo a tiempo normal como antes, porque estoy ocupadísimo cargando, levantando los videos de el sazón previa a nuestro sistema de Roku y de Amazon Fire TV, donde las personas mundialmente están sintonizando y viendo esas programaciones. Hace tiempo que están esperando lo nuevo, y lo nuevo sencillamente de la sazón previa, que todavía no se ha puesto por la urgencia, las cosas urgentes que todos debemos de estar, eh, eh, tener, y, um, y, y todavía no hemos terminado. So we're still trying to finalize on those things. Let me open up, by the way. I need to open up another instance here. So we're still working hard on getting those things finalized, and and so that's where we're at. So today we have a particular teaching. Hoy vamos a tener una enseñanza particular. It's not going to be the Q&A, but it's using social media today. No vamos a hacer la de las preguntas y las respuestas, aunque va a tener el formato similar. And today we are going to be let me get the chat client up here. We're going to be talking or discussing this topic today. Hoy vamos a estar hablando de este tema hoy. Now, it's in Spanish. You see it in Spanish. That's where the conversation originally took place. But I will be, just like I do with the English and translate to Spanish, for today, I'll be translating the Spanish to English. And now you're going to see how I do from the Spanish side to the English. So hoy van a ver cómo hago normalmente estoy traduciendo del inglés al español, pues hoy vamos a traducir del español al inglés. So eso va a ser lo que vamos a hacer hoy. So what it says here in English is, if Jesus was a Jew, why are Christians not Jewish? So that's basically what it says. It's a post by we're Facebook friends, to say the truth about it, but we are bitter enemies. We're on opposing viewpoints in terms of our apologetics, which is okay, but it shows you that we can be friends yet be starch opponents when it comes to the religious thing. But we're still friendly. He's still, when he's on another part of the continent, but we already got set. We've already are agreed that when either of us are in the same town, at any time we're going to sit together for some coffee. So we're going to get together, and he's a good chap, and I am a good chap to some degree. At least he thinks so. So that's good, right? Así que eres una persona, aunque somos amigos en Facebook, somos oponentes en lo que es la idea religiosa. So, está en un lado del ring, and I say that porque él también antes fajaba en el ring, de verdad. Y yo estoy en el otro lado del ring cuando viene a la religión, pero así como boxeadores, que él era uno, eh, somos amigos fuera del ring. All right? So, vamos a tomar café juntos, ya tenemos ya eso hecho, que cuando cualquiera de los dos esté en la ciudad donde está el otro, vamos a reunirnos y vamos a tomar café y vamos a, pues, así, conversar y estamos en paz uno con el otro. Muy bien, all right, so, came from his post, and the question is a good one. Even Christians say that they follow Jesus. Follow Jesus. I'm going to hear that terminology a lot. Following Jesus. What does that mean exactly? ¿Qué quiere decir seguir a Jesús? Jesús dijo a alguien en una ocasión en la Biblia está que toma tu cruz cada día y sígueme. Jesus said at one point in Scripture, as it is recorded, that pick up thy cross every day and follow me. So, what exactly does that mean? The Hebrews and Hebrew leaning Christians, or people who say that they have Christ or Yeshua, but also that one must follow the law and keep the Sabbath. So you got the Seventh Day Adventists, you have the Hebrew Israelites, you have the Hebrew roots, and other types and groupings of that same ilk. And you probably have now a bunch of Christian churches who are also adapting to a Sabbath viewpoint to one degree or another. They will all say that following Jesus was a Jew, as this post is alluding to. And if we're going to follow Jesus gave us an example. So they use this, they lean on this following Jesus's example very highly. I've been doing a series, and I think tomorrow I'll do part 2 on how to verify the truth. It's very important that if you guys are listening to me and following these teachings, you also look at each teaching, the Sunday teachings, as well as the Sabbath teachings, and vice versa. If you're following me on the Sunday teachings, you should also tune in on the Sabbath teachings as well, because many parts of it are interrelated. We're all talking about the scriptures, so they have to do with one another. The teachings on that I'm doing this past Sunday and tomorrow, how to verify the truth, is very important, because it goes to something we're going to talk about right now. It gives you more of a background in all of these things. So, very important stuff for you guys to listen to. As a background and as more information on what we're saying. Así que estoy dando unas clases el domingo que tienen que ver con esto también que voy a hablar hoy, y viceversa, dependiendo la audiencia, si ustedes me oyen en los sábados o si me están escuchando en los domingos, pues deben de también chequear los del sábado o del domingo respectivamente para tener más amplitud en ciertos temas que estoy elaborando. Como estoy hablando ahora de cómo saber, en esta polémica, si Jesús era judío, ¿por qué los cristianos no son judíos? ¿Qué judíos también? ¿Qué es la verdad? Si hay que seguir a Cristo, a seguir su ejemplo, pues cómo se debe tomar esa idea, ese concepto. So how are we going to take the concept of following Jesus, following Christ? How is that to be taken? And so again, we go back to what it is to verify the truth, verify true things. Okay. So right on the face of it, this is the answer I gave. There's other people who responded here as well, and Facebook changed it. I was the first one, by the way, to answer. But as Facebook does this thing, I guess the latest comments and stuff like that, it has its way of doing things. Yo era el primero en contestar la pregunta cuando apareció este post, pero como trabaja Facebook, muchas veces cambia el orden de las cosas. So, la primer comentario que era mía ya está abajo en algún otro lado, pero cuando yo contesté no había nadie aquí que había contestado. So let me just find that right. This was what I said. This was the first reply. I don't know what Facebook is doing with its reply system. It makes no sense to me. But anyway, así que no sé cómo están trabajando Facebook, que el primer comentario que fue el mío, ahora está, usted vio que está allí abajo, no sé, en este post, pero eso es lo que están haciendo allá en Facebook. Now, ¿qué dice? So, my statement was, because Jesus did not convert to Judaism. Porque Jesús no se convirtió al judaísmo. He stayed as he was born. Okay? Therefore, I follow his example. That's a misspelling in Spanish, by the way. Está mal escrito en español. Sigo su ejemplo. So we'll fix it here. So, como él nació y se quedó como nació, entonces ese es el ejemplo supremo, isn't it? See, so the supreme example, the greater example is the fact that he was born a Jew and he stayed as he was born. That is the greater example. If you're going to say we have to follow Jesus's example, then realize that he was born a Jew. I think most of the people who apologize towards keeping the law and keeping the Sabbath or becoming more Hebrew-like, see, they mostly forget the fact that when you are giving and citing biblical verses in scripture, and referring to biblical characters, they seem to forget that most of what is being said and most of the direction or the audience to whom whatever's being said is being said to is Jewish or Israel. Que la mayoría de personas, cuando están analizando, presentando, postulando, defendiendo la creencia pro-hebrea, pro-Israel, pro-cristianismo en el estilo judío, o sea, con el énfasis en las cosas judías, porque y las pruebas, las evidencias que proveen, que debe ser así judío, porque eso era la iglesia era judía, todas las prácticas eran judíos, etcétera, etcétera. Jesús fue judío, etcétera. Se olvidan que todo fue, o la mayoría, no todo, pero la mayoría de las evidencias que usan eran dirigidas y estaban en el contexto judío. It's like, no entienden que había una razón por la cual el énfasis era en el judaísmo, o sea, en Israel. They seem to not understand that there's a reason for the emphasis being made in the Hebrew context. There's a purpose and reason behind that. So, just saying that, well, Jesus was a Jew, why aren't you a Jew? Because we have, and the premise is because what is the truth that is behind that? Why should you be a Jew if Jesus is a Jew? Because the truth of the matter would be that we have to follow his example. I mean, that's a concept that is truthful, right? And Jesus said, "Follow me." And the apostles said we have to be like Christ. We have to be Christ-like. Así que es verdad, es una verdad que debemos seguir a Cristo, seguir su ejemplo. Ese es el concepto verdadero que se nos presenta. Ese es ¿cómo se dice? El río, el flujo de verdad, de conceptos verdaderas, que hay que seguir a Cristo. Los apóstoles enseñaron, Cristo dijo, sígueme. Los apóstoles enseñaron que debemos seguir a Cristo, debemos de seguir su ejemplo. You understand? So eso es un flujo de verdad. Okay? So that's a truthful flow of thinking and of reasoning. But take the whole example. Pero toma también entonces el ejemplo completo. ¿Sí? So it's like the same error. It's incredible. It's just incredible. And I'm not sure that people see it. And I point these things out, but I'm not sure that people are seeing it clearly. Notice that the urging is to follow the example of Jesus Christ. Fíjate que parece que la gente no se den de cuenta, ¿verdad? Voy a enseñar aquí que la urgencia es que sigamos el ejemplo de Cristo. Pero por alguna razón no toman todo el ejemplo que incluye que nació judío. So they want you to follow Jesus Christ, his example, but for some reason they fall short of following the full example or model of Christ in that he was born Jewish. See? So again, and that was in the flesh. This wasn't a spiritual birth. It was, like being born again is a spiritual thing. It's not in the flesh. In the flesh, Jesus was born a Jew. Así que en la carne Jesús fue nacido un judío. So you're asking a physical thing. That's the first flaw in this question. But even in the defense of the position, there is a great flaw as well. Because most people will say we have to follow Jesus Christ and follow his example. but then they leave out the beginning of the example. They're leaving out a part of the story which basically says it all. ¿Sí? Están dejando el principio del ejemplo de Jesús. Y por ende, ese principio del ejemplo de Jesús lo dice todo. So that's a problem, and that's, you see, how can you verify the truth of a concept if you're just taking part of the concept, part of the evidence? Okay, here's the evidence, but don't listen to the beginning. We're not considering the beginning. Así que este es el concepto, esta es la evidencia, pero no escuchamos, no consideremos o consideramos el principio. Eso lo dejamos quieto. Esto es lo que estamos mirando aquí. Esta es la evidencia. ¿Por qué no seguimos a Jesús? But el problema es que Jesús no empezó aquí. Jesús era todo. ¿Sí? ¿Y quién envió a Jesús? Who sent Jesus to us? Who sent the Son? The Father. So isn't the Father teaching us? ¿No sería la enseñanza del Padre? El Padre envió su Hijo. So entonces el ejemplo, la enseñanza del Padre comienza desde que envió su Hijo. So the teaching of the Father commences as he's sending his Son from the beginning. So how did the Father send Jesus? Say, let me show you what you needed in order for your thinking to be right. Déjame enseñarte lo que tú necesitábamos de Jehová para que su punto sería la verdad. Tú necesitabas que Jehová enviase Jesús no judío, que Jesús naciese no judío. Y que Jesús entonces se convirtiera al judaísmo. Y entonces sigue la ley, guarda el sábado. So what you needed was for Jehovah to send his Son not as a Jew, but as something else, a Samaritan even. You're close enough, right? Send the message. Jesus could have come as a Samaritan and then converted and became a full-fledged Jew, and then he followed the law. He did everything in the law. He kept the Sabbath. So then your belief system and your religious belief that all men and all Christians need to keep the law and keep the Sabbath and follow the law would be without question at all. And since the Jew issue isn't an issue at all, that the Jews would believe in him or not, does it matter? Because they didn't believe in Jesus anyway. And still not even till today. So that issue wouldn't have been an issue. That's not the reason that God didn't do it the way you needed it to be. It's simply not the truth. So that's not the way it is. Así que los judíos no recibieron a Jesús de todo modo, nacido judío. So no era que tenía que Jesús nacer de judío para que lo aceptaran, porque en realidad no lo aceptaron de todo modo. Y Dios podía haber hecho que los discípulos aceptaran a Jesús, que lo recibieran, que lo escucharan. Dios lo podía hacer. God could have made, the Father could have made the disciples listen to Jesus and accept his teaching, and everything else would have been the same. They still would have crucified his butt. Todavía lo hubieran crucificado. But at least all of the Gentiles would have a clear, absolute, crystal clear understanding that all of us are supposed to follow the law and keep the Sabbath day. Así que usted hubiera mandado y se convirtiera a judaísmo, lo hubiera matado de todo modo, aún con ganas, más ganas que lo que tenían. Y todavía, entonces, los gentiles hubieran recibido a Cristo Jesús y entendido sin duda alguna que hay que cumplir la ley y guardar el sábado sin duda alguna. Y yo estuviera dándole también pata a eso. Eso es como se debe hacer. So that would have been the case, but God didn't do that. Jehová no hizo así. So there's, you have to look at the other teachings, and my teachings on this is very clear. The scriptures are very clear on that. Yeah, God created the Israel for a specific purpose. And you need to read Exodus 19:3, 4, 5, etc. to understand that. With the statement you're making, it's really not what Exodus 19:3 is all about. Así que hay que leer Éxodo 19:3, porque dice que todos los cristianos son judíos. Eso no es eso no es la realidad del asunto. All right. So Israel was selected for a purpose which they did not fulfill. The only ones fulfilling the purpose that Israel had is the Christian church. Los que están llenando el papel que estaba supuesto hacer los judíos es la iglesia cristiana. And Exodus 19:3, 4, 5 prove it. Don't be fighting with me. Read it, because you need to tell me who in the world are the priests. Who is recognized as priests in all the world? As those teaching all the world. Who are they? See? That's what you have to look. You have to look to where God has fulfilled his promise or his process, better said, because the promise he made to Israel. But the process that was promised, who is exercising that process today and throughout history? That's the question you have to ask. La pregunta, porque están diciendo que los cristianos son judíos. Y yo digo, mira, en Éxodo 19, 3, 4 y 5, usted verá quién, el proceso, qué fue lo que Dios dijo para Israel, qué papel iba a tomar Israel. Entonces la cosa es quién en el mundo y en la historia completa, quién o quiénes han recibido y demostrado el proceso de Jehová, lo que Jehová dijo que iba a pasar con los judíos, con Israel. ¿Quién ejerce eso a través de la historia y hasta el día de hoy? ¿Quiénes son reconocidos como sacerdocio? So that is the key. Esa es la clave, porque eso te revela la verdad. That shows you the truth of the matter. Has nothing to do, again, with belief. It has to do with my belief. It has nothing to do with your belief. It has to do with mathematics. 2 + 2 = 4. God said that if Israel would obey him, they would be priests over all the nations, above all nations. Dijo que Israel, si obedecieran su voz, Iban a ser serán mis sacerdotes sobre todas las naciones. ¿Ok? So, ¿quiénes son hoy día los sacerdotes sobre todas las naciones? ¿Quién es reconocido como sacerdote en todas las naciones? And I'm not Catholic. Yo no soy católico en ese sentido. You see, I'm I'm just telling you what the facts are. For you to open your eyes, look and see. Because when we look and see, we come out with the truth. Because God doesn't lie. Dios no miente. Dios no miente. God does not lie. God's not trying to defend a religion. Dios no está tratando de defender una religión. Eso lo hacen los hombres. God, men do that. God doesn't do that. Dios habla verdad. God speaks the truth. God is the truth. So look at what God has done. Así que mira entonces lo que Dios ha hecho. There is your truth. Ahí es su verdad. There's nothing to say. No hay nada que decir. Hay que aprender. There's only to learn. See and learn. So those are the facts. Esas son los hechos. All right? So let's go back into the post. Because again, the thinking that Christians need to do the law and keep the Sabbath. The example that Jesus gave is stay as you are born. El ejemplo que dio Jesús es quedarse como naciste. Como Dios te hizo nacer, así te quedas. Okay, so si no eres judío de nacimiento, no hay que hacerse judío. If you haven't been born a Jew, you don't need to become a Jew. So that's a correct process. Because God determined that before you were born. Porque antes que tú te naciste, Dios lo determinó. Punto. Claro. When you read Exodus 19:3, you will see that God specifies who has to do the law and keep the Sabbath. Si usted lee con cuidado Éxodo 19:3, usted ve a quién Dios dice tienen que hacer o guardar la ley y guardar el sábado. Él lo dice ahí claramente, ¿quién? And again, I've repeated it like 1,000 times and probably repeated 1,000 times, throughout all these videos and all these teachings on the Sabbath. There were Gentiles in the group. There were other slaves there at Mount Sinai gathered. There was a multitude there, a whole bunch. Yet God specifically told Moses to the house of Jacob and the children of Israel. He didn't say if he wanted that everyone does the law, that everyone becomes a Jew, he would have said to the people gathered. He would have said to everyone gathered with you, to everyone who has come out of Egypt. Right? Isn't that the symbol of salvation? No es el símbolo de salvación que los que salieron de Egipto. Egipto es símbolo del mundo, de la esclavitud del mundo. Dios dice, yo te saqué de Egipto, pero también de Egipto salieron los gentiles que estaban allí. So, you also came out of Egypt. There were slaves. There were other people, other nations, Gentiles, Goyim. They were there. See? So if God was teaching, what do I have to do? I have to teach God how to teach. This is the type of thing that, people that don't understand, at least you need to understand that you make God look foolish with your belief system. Ustedes que insisten que Dios, que la enseñanza es esto y esto, no están analizando las cosas bien. Porque en ese demanda que Dios, que Dios lo que quiere que todo el mundo sea judío, usted está haciendo Dios verse como que no sabe enseñar. Que todo el mundo tiene que ser judío. If God wanted that everyone become a Jew, see, because I'm smart enough to know that if I know in the future that the only ones left around were going to be Judah, okay, that are clearly like those are the Jews. You know what I'm talking about, because who else do you know? People who are trying to be Jewish, people who say that they're Israel, but no one has any DNA tests and no way to prove it. Come on. The only ones who have the Jewish thing are the Jews out there, right? So if I know this is going to happen because God would know that, and I want everyone to be a Jew, like Exodus 19:3. I mean, like that's the moment. Hello, that's the moment to say everyone there. Ese es el momento. Mira, Dios sabía que en estos días solo iba a haber judíos. En Jerusalén, ¿dónde están los de Israel? Los de 12 tribus, los 10 tribus del norte. ¿Dónde están? ¿Quiénes son? ¿Hay pruebas de ADN? No. Así que Dios sabiendo esto y Dios queriendo, sí, porque la premisa o la idea, el concepto es que Dios quiere que los cristianos se hagan judíos. Pues ¿por qué Dios no dijo a estos gentiles, incluyó los gentiles en este discurso? Moisés, dile a todos reunidos. ¿Por qué tenía que especificar? So, why did God specify the house of Jacob, the children of Israel? Because the moment he said that, that excluded the mixed multitude. Así que excluyó Dios en la multitud mixta de gentiles. He excluded the other nations represented there. But they were represented. See, because that's part of the teaching. That is the teaching of God. They were represented, but they were not included. So la multitud mixta estaba presente y representada, pero no eran incluidos. That's what Jehovah teaches in Exodus 19. See? So, even though they were present, because the law has to do with that. Porque la ley tiene que ver con ello. ¿Por qué? See? These are the questions you have to realize that the law does have to do with them. It isn't theirs to follow, but it has to do with them as well. But it's not theirs to follow. The Sabbath has to do with them, but it's not theirs to keep. These are simple summations of what God did and said. They were there, he didn't include them. Ellos estaban allí, él no lo incluyó. Estaban presentes, pero no estaban obligados. So they were present, but they also were not obliged. They were not obligated, I should say. obliging in something else. Okay? They were not obligated or accountable. So what it means is the law and the Sabbath has to do with all of man, yes. La ley y el sábado tienen que verse con todos los hombres. But the only ones accountable to keeping it and to observe it is the house of Jacob, the children of Israel, Exodus 19:3, period. Así que aunque la ley y el sábado tienen que ver con todos los hombres, los únicos, los especificados en observarla son de la casa de Jacob y los hijos de Israel en particular. Okay? So that's the teaching from the Old Testament. We haven't even gone to the New Testament yet. Just the Old Testament. It's amazing, isn't it? It's amazing that the Old Testament is very New Testamentary. Interesting. Es interesante ver que el Antiguo Testamento es muy nuevo testamentario en muchas formas. I find no contradiction. And there's churches who completely ignore the Old Testament because they're confused by it. That's why. Hay iglesias que completamente ignoran el Viejo Testamento, el Antiguo Testamento, es porque están confusos de ella. No lo entienden. But really, el Viejo Testamento, el Antiguo Testamento es muy nuevo testamentario, actually. Mucho armonía. In fact, es más, define el Nuevo Testamento. So it's actually that the Old Testament is actually definitive in relation to the New Testament. What that means is the fancy word I use, definitive. It means that the New Testament is actually defined by the Old Testament. Okay? So in a way, it's the Old Testament is the foundation for the New Testament. It is the reason that we have the New Testament. It is the reason that we have the gospel. The gospel is in the Old Testament. It's not just something you see in the New Testament. It's actually in the Old Testament. Okay? Así que el evangelio también se ve en el Antiguo Testamento. See, but it's a matter of understanding. We did a teaching on that the other day. Es un asunto del entendimiento que dimos otra enseñanza el otro día sobre la falta de en Israel, que fue la que causó todo el problema. So we know that the main problem that Israel had, if you look at Isaiah 28, was a lack of knowledge, a lack of science, and a lack of understanding. Una falta de ciencia y falta de entendimiento. We also know the verse that says, my people suffer for lack of knowledge, right? God said it various times. Vemos que Dios lo dijo muchas veces, que mi pueblo sufre por falta de conocimiento, right? So that is, and again, that goes to the character. Listen up here. These is important, key, pivotal facts that you have to understand. The reason there was lack of knowledge was because of the character of this law on tablets of stone. El carácter de la ley en las tablas de piedra es todavía la causa de la falta de entendimiento. Why is that? It's because if you are given a set of rules to follow and you are told, do these things, right? Do these things. What is it that you automatically not do? ¿Qué es lo que tú no haces cuando te dicen haga estas cosas? And it's the thing then that they got criticized for, right? Es la cosa que ellos fueron criticados. Actually, at this moment, I'm giving you a summation of so many teachings. It's not funny. But if you followed my teachings from the beginning, you will say that came from that. That came from that. That came from that. Right? Because it's all coming. It's all coming together. You see that? So what is it that you're not doing? And that's the human tendency not to do. And matter of fact, if you know anything about education, everything I'm telling you, you can research it. You can go to college, go into education, into psychology, the sciences, and you will verify every detail that I'm speaking about right now. Así que cada detalle que estoy hablando ahora se puede confirmar en la ciencia de educación y en la psicología. When you are looking and when you are given a list of steps to follow, okay, the thing that you're not doing and you're just taking care of memorizing, because there's another part in the Torah that says memorize, right? Remember the Sabbath day. La otra cosa es acuérdate. Cuando tú estás dando cosas para acordarse. The thing that you're not doing, a matter of fact, remembering or memorization, which is what most people would do, la memorización, es el nivel más bajo de la educación, o sea, del aprendizaje. Memorizing things is the lowest level of learning that you can have, that a human engages in. That lowest level of learning anything is memorization. Okay, and this is again, you can research, do your research. If you don't know about education, if you don't know about psychology, look at it. That's the lowest level in learning something is memorization. It's usually the first step. Usually, a lot of students do this. They resort to this for learning data, learning things in school, to pass the test. Really, they're not really learning, and that's the point that I'm trying to bring. El punto que estoy trayendo es que no se aprende memorizando, solo se memoriza. When you're memorizing things, you really don't learn. You're just memorizing something. You're not understanding it at all. You don't need to. See what happens? You don't need to understand. And isn't it one of the Jewish emphasis that the rabbis do and tell the people, this is not for you to think about, so don't think about these things. Can you imagine that? Yeah, it would have been hideous to have me sitting, because they want me as a Christian to be a Jew, whoever it is that wants that, and me to hear the rabbi tell me not to think. Lord, why you give me a brain for? Ah. Man, this world is mad. You guys are losing it. You don't use it, so you might as well lose it. I can understand that. So you're losing it because you don't use it. See, you're not supposed to. Los rabinos enseñan, mira qué desastre, que no se debe pensar las cosas. Solo hay que hacerlas, hay que ser obediente. And the Seventh Day Adventists actually took one of my comments, because if you're a Seventh Day Adventist and you ever heard one of your speakers or teachers come and say, you know, we have to follow the word of God or the law, simply, you know, when there's a lack of understanding, a lack of knowledge, we just have to obey. See? So you don't understand. You may not understand these things, but you just have to obey. If you heard that, I'm the horse that spoke it. And I spoke it to one of your executive board members. See, the guy who's teaching you here today, God put me up against one of your executives, worldwide executives. And we had an exchange. It was amicable, it was decent. But one of these phrases that I used, that I went to explain to him with, he took that. He said, "Oh, that's a great statement. I'm going to use that." See, he said that, so that I know that the person in his position, that started going out into the church, the Seventh Day Adventist church, and I really found it disgusting. Really displeased me to a great degree, because again, he was going to use it to keep the people in ignorance. And that for me is like the worst thing that a leader of people can ever do. And he's supposed to be teaching the truth. And you have all these people believing in God, believing that what they're being taught is the truth. And this guy, because I'm going to call him a guy, takes one of my phrases that I use to explain the weakness of their position, and he's going to take it out of the context in order to abuse the people and keep them in control. That to me was like the greatest thing. Disaster and criminal. I count it as a criminal thing that a person can do upon another. And this guy's in charge of all the churches, Seventh-day Adventists on the whole world. Así que este varón ejecutivo de los adventistas mundialmente, él cogió uno de mis enseñanzas, o sea, de una de las frases que yo estaba explicando, la debilidad de la obediencia ignorante. Y él lo cogió para usarlo, para controlar a la gente en la iglesia adventista. Y yo me ofendí por ustedes, por los que son adventistas. And I'm offended. I'm offended, on behalf of the Seventh-day Adventists who don't even realize that they're being abused by these people who want to keep them in control and not teach them. Why don't you teach them the truth? Why don't you teach them to have understanding instead of using things to control them? Which is basically what this guy did. He didn't, I find that very offensive. Está usando cosas que en vez de enseñarle al pueblo, está usando cosas para controlar el pueblo, y eso yo lo veo muy mal, muy mal. Eso me cayó a mí como, hit me like a ton of bricks. I really did not like it. I still look at me. This is years ago. And I'm still reeling from it. And even the thought of it. So, esto pasó años atrás y todavía estoy caliente, caloroso de ese evento. My goodness. So again, we have to realize who God was specific. And not only that, but think about this. Think about how God started his Ten Commandments. What did he first say? He said that I have taken you out of Egypt, from the house of bondage. He specifically refers to their bondage, that he took them out. What does that mean? You gotta translate things. What does that mean? If I took you out of the house of bondage, what does that mean? See that? And I tell you that before giving you the 10 orders, the 10 commands. What does that mean? See that? Así que, again, I have the teachings on that. It's clear. If I'm telling you I'm telling you you're grown up now. I set you free from having to obey everything you were told in Egypt. Here are the 10 commandments. What am I telling you? Seventh-day Adventist executive, obey. Whack. You see the abuse when God Himself is telling them you're no longer a slave. So don't take what I'm going to say now as a slave. Take it as what? A free man. All right. Así que Dios le dio los 10 mandamientos como gente libre, ya no esclavo. Oye, qué cosa. So, si tuvieran esclavos y se le diera mandatos, ¿qué tenían que hacer? Obedecer. Pero si son libres, ¿qué tienen que hacer? See that? So if they're free men, what are they supposed to do with these commands? They're from God, so yeah, hey, they're commands from God. But also, let's think about what God is telling us. You have that freedom. You have the freedom to think. You have the freedom to learn. Because after all, it's in the whole thing called what? Torah. What does Torah mean? Instructions, right? Again, instructions for what? People will say obeying. But they're not slaves anymore. La Torah dicen que es instrucción, pero la gente lo toman como es para obedecer. Cuando Dios repite, ustedes son libres. See, now as an educator, now ask an educator, what is the purpose of instruction? Or instructions, because this is the two ways to look at it. It's an instruction in terms of 1, 2, and 3, or is it instruction in terms of teaching? What is it? What's the purpose? ¿Qué es el propósito de instrucciones, de lista de instrucción o de otro modo, instrucción en la escuela, la educación? ¿Qué es? ¿Sí? Is it obeisance or is it understanding? ¿Es obedecer, obediencia o es entendimiento? Sí, eso es por la razón. See, if God just wanted obeisance, He would have told them, listen, just like you obeyed your masters in Egypt, here are the 10 commandments. Then it's clear, obey me or die. Si Dios hubiera dicho, mira, así como ustedes estaban en Egipto, ahora estos son los 10 mandamientos míos. Obedecerlas, muérete. Entonces, se entiende. But if he's saying that you guys are free, then it's something else, ladies and gentlemen. Entonces, si está diciendo que ahora son libres, entonces otra cosa. Yo te he hecho libre, he said to them. I've made you free, he told them. Something else, okay? Again, getting back to the character of this law on stone tablets, el carácter de la ley en tablas de piedra produce obediencia, porque es una lista. In other words, it produced a listing of 10 commands, and the tendency was then to obey it, to learn it, to memorize it, and to follow it, to obey it. But there is no learning. There's no implication. Because even you guys, when you hear, oh, we have to obey this, you're not thinking about learning. It's not about learning, is it? Because you never learned obeisance was about learning or understanding. It's just doing, right? Usted cuando oyó la palabra obedecer o obediencia, usted siempre piensa de seguir lo que se dice, no de pensar, no de aprender. Usted se hace lo que dijeron. Así que that is the basis of it, right? It's the character of it. Es el carácter de ello. And really the only thing that makes a difference in that case is the intent. Really, right? Es el intento, lo único diferencia, o que hace una diferencia, es el intento del autor, del que manda. What is the purpose? Same thing as in being a parent. As a parent, you give all instructions, orders, commands to your children for them to obey, or is it for them to learn? Usted le da mandatos a sus hijos para que ellos obedezcan o para que ellos aprendan. Look, see, there's a difference. Because if they don't do what you told them to, then what happens? Punishment. Si no hacen lo que tú mandaste, entonces viene castigo. Pero si tú estás tratando de enseñar cuando ellos no hacen lo que tú dijiste, entonces ¿qué hay? Ay, mijo, fallaste. Déjame explicarte qué hiciste mal y por qué te mandé a hacerlo así. ¿Sí? It's a different thing when you see, oh, son, you didn't do as I had told you to do. Okay, let me tell you why I told you to do this way. And you explain to them what they need, what you're trying to teach them, then it becomes a different matter. It becomes a matter towards progression instead of towards hate or feeling unworthy because you failed again. I must be stupid. I'm an idiot. You think God wants us to feel that we're stupid and idiots? Usted piensa que Dios quiere que nosotros nos sentimos que somos idiotas y estúpidos, right? That's the feeling you get from the tablets on the law on stone tablets. Ese es el pensar que uno recibe de la ley en tablas de piedra. And the way these so-called Christians who follow the law want everyone to do the same thing as they, and they have this thing, this attitude about them. They have adopted the same attitude of Israel, who break my covenant. Así que tienen el mismo actitud de Israel, que rompió, violó su ley. ¿Sí? Lo que es, no está obedeciendo a ley, usted está en desobediencia, está en pecado. See, you guys are disobedient, you are in sin. You're sinning against God. See, because it becomes accusatorial, which is basically where all of these Hebrew roots and Hebrew whatevers are doing, like against Christians. They're accusatorial. Ellos son acusadores a los cristianos. And it's a terrible thing because the Bible says who accuses the saints. You guys are putting yourselves in a very difficult position. Se están poniendo en una situación, una posición muy difícil. Cuando condenan y critican o juzgan a los cristianos, porque sabemos quién es que juzga a los santos. La Biblia es bien clarito, tiene estos puntitos ahí que mira. So the Bible is very clear and specific. It is. It gives you, you don't want to find yourself on the wrong side because you made a very simple mistake. Okay, good. So let's go into this post more as we develop it, and we see what more we discuss. So vamos a entrar más en detalle en lo que se habló. So we see that Jesus, obviously, the teaching that following Jesus must include that he was born as a Jew. So that factor must get included. El factor que él nació como judío tiene que ser incluido. Okay? So what is the example that Jesus gave? That he was born a Jew and he stayed a Jew. See, I was born Puerto Rican and I'm staying Puerto Rican. Just simple as that. I don't have to become a Jew because I'm following Christ's example. Yo estoy siguiendo el ejemplo de Cristo. Él nació judío. Yo nací puertorriqueño. Él se quedó judío. Yo me quedo puertorriqueño. Punto. Eso es lo que soy, puertorriqueño. Si Dios quería que yo me hiciera judío, me hubiera hecho nacer de padres judíos. Period. If God wanted me to be a Jew, he would have had me born as a Jew. Simple and clear. Even as an Israelite, and you guys can say that you're Israelite because Puerto Ricans are descended by so and so, descended from this son of Jacob and whatnot, then I'll tell you once again, show the DNA. Because of course God would have made it clear in the real world that you are Israel. Dios hubiera hecho preservar en el mundo verdadero, real, que son Israel por el ADN. ¿Dónde está? Eso es una prueba muy común. La gente puede saber de dónde vienen. Así que, ¿por qué no pueden enseñar? Este es el ADN de Israel. ¿Sí? So if you are Israel, and if you believe that God wants everyone to be a Jew, so then let's have the DNA. Because God would have preserved the Jewish DNA or the Israel DNA somewhere, somehow. And it could happen, like I said, the truth of God is what matters to me, not that I am right. La verdad de Dios es lo que me importa a mí, no que yo sea correcto. Simply, here today, there is no traceable DNA that specifically says that you are descendant of Israel. Ahora mismo no hay una ADN que especifica viene de Israel, ¿okay? De los hijos de Jacob. No hay. Así que quiere decir que Dios ¿qué? No ha preservado. Y si lo ha preservado, no lo ha revelado hasta este momento. So even if there is DNA, which, is identifiable as Israel, God has not revealed it. Even if he has preserved it, he has not made it revealed or clear. See? Again, who is it that wants everyone to be a Jew? ¿Quién es que quiere que todo el mundo sea judío o que todo el mundo sea Israel? Or that everyone become Israel? Who is it? Your church or is it Jehovah? Because if it's Jehovah, he hasn't produced the basis so that people can see, yeah, I'm Israel. I would be afraid. They sign my blood. You are Israel, Rosado. I would praise God. Amen. Nothing would tickle me more pink. And my name is Rosado, by the way. It means pink in English. The color pink. That's my family name, Rosado. So nothing would tickle me more pink than for me to see that my blood says that I'm a descendant of one of the tribes of Israel. Wonderful. Beautiful. I have no problem with that. It's a wonderful thing. And they're a wonderful people who would not want to be that. Of course. Quien no quisiera ser Israel. But that's my point. You see, a lot of folks, they want to be Israel so much that you'll make the word of God do and backward flips and do whatever you needed to do and to say to defend your being Israel at all costs. Usted quiere que la palabra de Dios sea que te defienda para que tú seas judío o Israel de todos modos. And simply, I would have more reasons to be happy to have Israel DNA in me. And I would be, obviously, I'm here on worldwide TV, on TV sets all across the planet. I would be a wonderful voice for that reality on the planet, you know. So where's the DNA? Así que that's all that's needed, right? Así que solo necesito el ADN. Y eso es todo. Entonces, mira qué bien. Rosado es Israel, o Rosado es un hijo de Israel. Qué bien, qué chévere. So then, if it is made clear and evident that we are in fact Israel, then that's a different matter altogether. But I'm not going uh, to claim to be Israel just for the sake of being in the group, which is where most people who do this are doing. La mayoría de personas que están metiéndose en Israel están metiéndose para ser parte del grupo, no porque lo son en realidad. And trying to make it like a Christian spiritual thing. We're all Jews spiritually and all this thing. Again, you are not understanding the purpose for why God gave the pact or the covenant to Israel. You're not understanding the reasons and the risk involved, it became evident, but you're not realizing it. And you're not even realizing that what you're doing is actually adopting, because you're not even doing it the right way. No lo estás haciendo. La gente que están adoptando Israel para sí, que son hijos de Israel, no están realizando el peligro que están cogiendo. Just read Jeremiah 31. I just tell you, if you think that you're Israel, you believe it, and you're operating under that assumption, you really need to read Jeremiah 31 through 34, 35. You need to read it very carefully and be careful not to offend Jehovah. That's all I'm going to say. Don't step on Jehovah's toes, okay? That's all I'm going to say. You read it for yourself. Si usted piensa que tú eres Israel, pues lo que te recomiendo es que leas Jeremías 31, de 31 hasta 34, 35. Léelo con cuidado. Y solo te voy a decir que no pisotea los pies de Yahweh. No lo pisotee. ¿Ok? Porque están haciendo cosas que... All right, so that's all I'm going to say on that matter right now. So let's go into the rest of the comments. This is very interesting. We're going to go into a few questions that come up here. We've already started with the reality. We're having some issues for the Roku stream. And yeah, so that's not responding. But I can't cancel out, because if I cancel out, it messes up everyone else. So I'm not going to do that. Alrighty, I see. Yeah. All right. So, and now I made the replies here, and this fellow, the OP, said, the author of the, and I'm surprised they don't say the author here. Es cierto, pero tenemos que aclarar que nadie ha mencionado en este post del judaísmo. See, so no one has talked. He says that no one. This is the guy who said the original message, the original post. He says, look at what he said. Now he is Hebrew something, whatever, Hebrew roots or Hebrew, this is the guy we're talking about. And he says that, yes, that's true, but no one here, I want to make clear that no one here has mentioned Judaism. See? So, just so that we can be clear, let's look at the original post. He says that no one has mentioned Judaism. Okay, so let's look at the original post. And by the way, this is typical. This is the same person you see here, the same person who said that to me down below. En la misma persona que me dijo esto abajo es el que escribió este artículo. Entonces, él dice que nadie ha mencionado aquí el judaísmo. Pero mira lo que dijo. Si Jesús era judío, ¿por qué los cristianos no son judíos? Entonces, él dice que nadie mencionó judaísmo. Do you understand that? So, I know that some people differentiate Jew from Jewish, which would be the English translation of judaísmo in Spanish. But that's not what he is. He does not make that differentiation. I'm very clear in what I'm saying. When we say Judaism, we're talking about being a Jew. That's it, Jews. Porque Jesús, and in any case, it still goes to my point. Jesus did not become a Jew. Either way you want to look at it, Jesus did not become a Jew, okay, as opposed to accepting Judaism. But if you're telling us to become a Jew, we actually cannot become a Jew. We would only have to adopt Judaism. So el gentil no puede hacerse judío, solo podía hacerse, convertirse al judaísmo. So to speak that the Jewishness would be, adopting the Jewish lifestyle, right? That's what all we could do. We could not be a Jew. We already born Puerto Rican. No podemos ser judíos si solo fuimos nacidos puertorriqueños. Ahora, esto un poquito, quizás se olvidó dónde está, porque esto sucede muchas veces, que uno se olvide de lo pasado, pero también esto ocurre muchas veces en los que guardan la ley el sábado, que se olviden de las primeras cosas. This is a good example of it. If he did it because of it or not, it's still a good example of forgetting the original things, the first things, which is when you come to start believing that we're supposed to become Jews and we're supposed to follow Jesus' example to include adopting Jewishness, etc., you then are forgetting the first things. Because if you're saying that that God wants us to be a Jew, then Adam should have been Jew. Entonces Adán tenía que haber sido judío, tenía que Dios haberle hecho judío. Si Dios quiere que seamos judíos, entonces porque Adán. And then obviously Noah, come on. Entonces Noé, por cierto, ¿no? And I already gave teachings on these two people. And I told you that's where the Bible begins. But again, if you are focused on Israel, you have to forget all of the Genesis stuff. Si tú estás enfocado en los judíos, en Israel, tiene que olvidarse de Génesis, especialmente de las cosas principiantes. All right. Dice, so he continues here, sino las enseñanzas que le dio Hashem a su hijo Yeshua para traernos de nuevo a su Torah, instrucciones y Torah. So what they're saying is that they are talking about the instructions the teachings of Yeshua, of Jesus, to bring us to Torah, because that's the issue. That what Jesus never said. That's another thing. Que Jesús nunca dijo esto. They're saying it. Ellos están diciendo esto, pero Jesús nunca dijo. No hay un texto que dice, yo he venido a traerte al Torah de nuevo. Él no dijo eso. But this is their theology. They don't realize they are slowly adopting new teachings, different teachings that are not what Jesus said, even to accommodate their belief system. This is what happens. You begin to say things that are not in the scripture. Entonces empiezan a decir cosas que no están en las escrituras. Y eso es lo que se está formando. Now, yo he visto a esta persona hace los tiempos. So I've seen this guy transition, actually. He used to be Christian and he became this Hebrew whatever. He doesn't really identify himself. But he has become this Jewishness type of thing, belief system, adopted it, and I've seen his argumentation develop and evolve over time. I remember things. Yo recuerdo muy bien las cosas y yo he visto la evolución del cambio de un creyente que no sabe mucho y entonces alguien que está metido de cabeza en estos estudios. So I understand that. I've seen it. I've seen what they're doing. So it's been a case study for me, actually. So that's what I've been doing by observing how he's developing. Así que, so we see that he is focusing on this instructions in Torah that Jesus is supposedly he came to bring us back to Torah. Again, Jesus came to his own. Jesús vino a lo suyo. He's not seeing any difference or separation between the Gentiles when obviously there is one. Obviamente hay una separación entre el ministerio de Jesús y los gentiles. Él no predicó a los gentiles Jesús. Jesus did not come to teach to the Gentiles. He did not come here. There are specific reasons why not. They have their version, but the scriptural version is very different. It's actually very different. But anyway, again, we've covered that, and there's other times where we'll go into that. Okay, so he says that the lifestyle, and how we prepare ourselves to represent ourselves in front of our King Yahweh. No lo voy a leer en español, ustedes lo pueden leer en la pantalla. Not how the religious system of Christianity has done. The Jews or Jewishness is a lifestyle. Without offending your person, because I respect you and I admire you. I'm sorry, I have to read what he said, right? And I admire you as a brother. I am only attacking the system, not the person. And then he bids me peace, shalom in Hebrew, and blessings. Okay, so that was his reply to me. So I respond to him. I quote his that no one has said anything about Jewishness, but the teachings of and that the instructions of Torah is not Jewishness. So they're saying that he said that Torah is not Jewish, being Jewishness or having Jewishness or the religious Jew, but it is a lifestyle. So my response is, but Torah specifies to whom the instructions were given. So Torah especifica a quién fue dado las instrucciones. And number 3, I'm quoting the quote from Exodus 19:3. Y Moisés subió a Dios, and Moses went up to God, and Jehovah called him from the mountain, saying, "This is what you shall say," and I have the arrows, "to the house of Jacob, and will tell the children of Israel." So I point out, I say, notice that the law was given particularly to a people and not to a potpourri of nations, mixed nations, directly or by name, right? So Dios específicamente mandó el pacto, la ley a a la casa de Jacob y los hijos de Israel, no a naciones mixtas que estaban allí. He specified, like we said before. And I added, it is very intellectually dishonest to say that the Torah is a style of life when Yahweh says, in addition, Exodus 34:19. So now I'm challenging because this, see, when you are looking for the truth and making sure that you have the truth, you have to challenge the things that are said or the statements that you develop and present either for yourself or to say to someone else. And here I said, because Jehovah also says in 34:19, they're saying that the Torah is a lifestyle. Now look, every firstborn is mine. Okay. Now I'm mentioning this verse because it's the tone and the character of of the Torah and or everything that's being given, that he is calling you Jew, that Jesus was a Jew, and then he's saying that I'm not talking about the Jewishness, I'm talking about the instructions of Torah. So that's a lifestyle. So I'm bringing out what Jehovah is saying himself, characterizing Torah, that he's calling a lifestyle. Look at what Jehovah is saying about it. He's saying every firstborn is mine of your herds, every firstborn of the bulls and of the sheep that is male, of the rams that are male, right, of the sheep that are male. And then I asked him, is it possible that Jehovah asks these firstborns, I see that these births, to choose a lifestyle, referring obviously to the human births, right? He says, all firstborn are mine. They belong to me. Okay, so if you're saying that Torah is a lifestyle, where is their choosing of a lifestyle? If Yahweh is saying that they belong to me, period, where is their choice of a lifestyle? Because a lifestyle is chosen. It's a style. It's when you say lifestyle, you're talking about an option that not everyone has the same style of living. So it's just, again, it's that we start using certain terms that really are inappropriate. And he used this lifestyle term. I'm sure he heard it from his teachers, but it's totally wrong. Así que él usó este asunto de estilo de vida, este término, y se ve que usando ese término es inapropiada, no es conducivo a una transmisión o a una adoptación de verdad o una identificación de alguna premisa o algún concepto como la verdad. No se puede admitir, porque sencillamente no se puede llamar Torah y las instrucciones de Dios como un estilo de vida. Esto es otra cosa. completamente. Okay, and I ended up by saying, please, come on, you cannot say that that's a lifestyle. So then he stopped because obviously he could not come back. I mean, he was caught. I mean, he realizes that he's caught. And then this woman comes and says, "You have confirmed the same that Jehovah is speaking to with the children of Israel. Yahweh never spoke, nor never will speak with Gentiles." And again, she is totally, totally in error. Okay, she's totally wrong there. All right, but that's another Bible story. She obviously did not remember, or maybe she hasn't gotten to yet in the Bible. But that is totally wrong. I mean, who is Adam? I mean, see what happens. This is a classic example of what happens when you start getting too Hebrew. You start forgetting that the Bible does not begin in Exodus 20. That's it. This is the classic example of the problem. When you start believing that you're supposed to be Hebrew, that you're supposed to be Israel, then there's no point in Genesis 1, 2, 3, and you can keep going up the line. But God placed it there because that's the truth. La verdad está en Génesis 1, 2, 3. También es parte de lo que uno tiene que decir. Uno no puede decir que nunca habló ni nunca hablará con los gentiles. Si Adán era gentil, you can't say that God would never speak to a Gentile if Adam was a Gentile. He wasn't a Jew. He wasn't Israel. See, this is the silliness that this is all the proof that's needed. I don't have to bring any more proof that the Hebrew concept for Christians and for Gentiles is totally anti-biblical. It's a misconcept of what's going on in the Bible. They're not understanding what's going on in Torah. No están entendiendo lo que está pasando en Torah. And like I did in some other teachings, you can have it doesn't matter that there's a million verses, which there probably are, which is directed to Israel. You figure, well, where are the Gentiles? Well, God is busy building up Israel for the benefit of the whole world. That was the whole point. Así que Dios está tratando con Israel para el beneficio de todo el mundo. So it's not like God is not dealing with all of man. He is. It's through Israel. The whole point was getting Israel to do the right thing so that they can be the priests to the world. See? So that's it. They didn't do it. No hicieron lo que estaban supuestos a hacer. That's why you got the whole Old Testament. Antiguo Testamento is they didn't do what they were supposed to do. But God still did what he said he would do. That's what the Bible is teaching. Así que la Biblia enseña que Israel no hizo lo que estaba supuesto a hacer, pero Dios todavía hizo lo que dijo lo que iba a hacer. That's the story of the Bible. It isn't, that everything is for the Jews and the Jews are everything and then everything is going to be for the Jews. No. It is simply that they failed. Jeremiah 31, 30. But God still does what he's going to do. He's still saving humanity. Genesis 1. Así que Génesis 1 todavía es el primer capítulo. Dios hizo al hombre. Punto. El hombre se perdió. Dios está salvando al hombre. Punto. So man fell. Man got lost. Man sinned against God. God is saving man. Period. That's the story of the Bible. That's why it starts with that story. Now that Israel didn't do... you'll have to repeat what question because I'm dealing with a lot of them at the same time in my head. If God didn't make the Jew in the beginning, and just because he says so much about Israel does not imply that that's the point. See, the point, his point is the end game. El punto de Dios es el juego del fin. Yo sé si hay otro nombre en español. En ajedrez hay diferentes fases. El juego el juego introductoria, el juego mediana o medio, y entonces el juego del fin. No sé cómo se dice en español. Pero es las cosas como quiere Dios terminarlas. And so we see that God is concerned with fulfilling his promises. Okay, and that's fine. But we see that at the end of the day, salvation is what's at hand. You must read the Holy Quran for the answer. You haven't specified the question. Or I'll have to assume you're talking about the question of the title of the broadcast, the Periscope in your case. I already answered the question. We already passed that. You just came in now. You missed it. But that is also symbolic of the Quran and of the believers in the Quran. So when you go actually and look through the beginning of this broadcast, you will see that that's already been answered. And that's also true with a lot of the things you may be thinking about otherwise. There's a lot of truth in what I just said. Okay, so going on here, we see it's just interesting when you see the same ideation carry through, and just like what just happened now with the fellow and the Quran question or response, it's just the same thing over and over again. That's the proof. That's all the proof you need, because they show the same characteristic. They're speaking. They come in later in what's happening in the world, and all of a sudden they know the answer. They're doing the same thing right here. It's interesting how God has orchestrated this broadcast. It's just so uncanny, because everything that's going on is actually exactly what this thing is teaching us here. Exactly, to the T. Right now, we have the Quran just came in late to the game, and it is what it is. Exactly the way the Bible presents everything, the way everything's been taught, and we've been specifying and giving the emphasis and pointing out in Scripture exactly that way. And to finalize things, we have the Quran coming in at the last part of the game, but it wants to be shown as if it has all the answers. Really, come on. Okay, so we'll continue. It's really, this is the state of affairs is what it is. Okay, so it says here, so obviously this is a total error, but people believe it once they start following the law on tablets. They believe this thing. It's the same thing with any religion out there. Once you start on the wrong foot, then there's a lot of things that you start believing. It makes sense. But the fact is, you started the wrong way. See, and that carries through to your belief. In order for you to make sure that you are in the truth, you have to start on the right foot. Okay, the first things are first. Do not ever even believe, okay, that if you have the truth, for example, now that this person came in from Islam, do not ever even believe that it's reasoned that you come in late and you know what happened in the beginning. Okay, you were not here. You did not see the accident. For you to even believe that God held up all the truth until later when you came in, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Totally ridiculous. Makes no sense at all. And it says a lot to then that the system. that you're believing in. Obviously. See, that's why, you know. So again, if you have a God, you know what? Let him speak from the beginning, from the truth, from the beginning, the onset. That's what needs to be had. And there's no reason that God did not establish or would not establish first, speak it first and do it first. See that? Not come in later, but say it first. Okay? So again, you have to look at the first things first. So you want to learn something, look at the first things first. But don't come in later with a perspective and then look at the first things with that later perspective. Because that is error. That's deception. That's the same thing the devil did. Don't you see the devil did the same thing to Eve? Was he there when God said what he said? Was he there talking with Eve too? No. But then he comes in later and he said, "Oh, did God say this or that?" You know, he wants to give his opinion later, after God has said. You see, you understand? So this is the problem. The God already gave us an example of this happening. So simply, we just have to learn from the examples I've already given. So now we go continue, and we say he says that, or this person, uh, that you have to purify yourself, obeying the commandments. And then we will be inserted or grafted. That's the word. Oh my God. Now they got into another can of worms here. Grafted into the people of Yeshua. See, so this is the problem. El problema es este. Uh, the example that she's giving is from the tree that those who are now believing, those who are coming in to believe now with Jesus through Yeshua, they will be grafted in, right? So again, and they're saying grafted into his people, but it's his people that were taken out. So the people were taken out, and let's go into Romans 11. Let's take a look at Romans 11. Romans 11. And we see here, I say then, hath God cast away his people? Talking about Israel. God forbid, for I also am an Israelite, of the seed of Abraham, of the tribe of Benjamin. God hath not cast away his people which he foreknew. Wot ye not what the scripture saith of Elias, how he maketh the intercession to God against Israel, saying, Lord, they have killed thy prophets, and digged down thine altars, and I am left alone, and they seek my life. Okay? Again, the results of the tablets of stone. Law on the tablets of stone. But what saith the answer of God unto him? I. You got to listen to God, not the tablets, not the law. I have reserved to myself 7,000 men who have not bowed the knee to the image of Baal. Okay? So again, 7,000 is a symbolic number. We won't get into that. You get those on Sundays when you listen in. But here it goes that again, he has not allowed these men to falter. God say the answer, I have reserved, not that they have stayed faithful. Don't you see? Don't you read English? Aquí tú no ves que Dios está diciendo que yo he reservado para mí. No está diciendo que ellos han sido fiel, que ellos han sido obedientes. You know, this person is saying that by purifying ourselves by obedience in the commandment, and here is taking me to a verse. She's referring to a chapter that tells you clearly that God is reserving these people, not themselves. God has reserved. It's just they don't see it because they're under the filter of obedience. Obey the law, obey the law, obey the law. So God said, I have reserved. They don't see it. They don't. It doesn't connect because they're not allowing themselves to see. It's clear. Even so, then at this present time, also in addition to that, there is a remnant according to the election of grace. So, además que los 7,000, right? And he's saying about in this time, as opposed to when Elijah was running away or trying to stay alive, Elias, then you have at this time, today, while I'm writing this, there is a remnant according to the election of grace. Not according to what? Not according to what? That have nothing to do with Israel, right? Because that was Israel. That's Israel following the law. But now we have a remnant according to what? The law, according to the tablets of stone, according to the day of Sabbath, the keeping of Sabbath, according to the obedience of the commandments of God. You know, it's amazing to me that people who are trying to say that, we have to follow God's commandments, then they cite stuff in the New Testament that doesn't say that. But, was it so hard for God to inspire his apostle to say, as a Jew, because he said, I am an Israelite. Is it so hard for this Israelite to say, according to the keeping of the law and the keeping of the Sabbath, of the covenant? Is that such a hard thing for a Jew to say? Because I can find any Jew on the street and they'll say that. It's easy. You gotta keep the Sabbath. As a matter of fact, I can find any Seventh-day Adventist Puerto Rican who will say that. Comes off the tongue very easy. Even like this lady, she would say it very easy. You gotta obey the commandments. Hay que seguir obedientemente los mandamientos, los 10 mandamientos, hay que seguirla. Es fácil para esta dama. Es fácil para un adventista puertorriqueño. Y es fácil para un judío, de veras, ¿no? Pero este judío israelita no pudo decir claramente, directamente, que en este tiempo hay un remanente que se mantiene obediente a los mandamientos de Dios. No puede decirlo. Y no lo dijo. So here this Israelite, more closer to the law and to keeping the Sabbath than anyone who claims that they are Jewish or that they are Christian, that all Christians are Jew, or that they are Hebrew this or Hebrew that, more than they. This Israelite, period, of the tribe of Benjamin. This guy goes all the way up there, son of Abraham of the tribe of Benjamin. He can trace his lineage, his DNA. He couldn't come out and just say, keeping the Sabbath, keeping the commandments. He had to just say, according to the election of grace, acuerdo a la elección de gracia. No pudo decir obediendo. And if by grace, to prove that he's talking about grace and it's not obedience, then is it no more of works? See, because works is obedience. Dice aquí que no es por obra. Si es por gracia, no es por obra. Dice este judío de verdad. Dice este israelita de verdad. De sangre puro israelita. No es por las obras. It's not by the works. Okay. Otherwise, grace is no more grace. But if it be of works, then it is no more grace. Otherwise, work is no more work. What then? Israel hath not obtained that which he seeketh for. See? So, what is the result of this? What I've been saying all this afternoon. Israel did not fulfill what God wanted them to do. But the election hath obtained it. But the Christians have obtained it. That's why I told you to verify with Exodus 19, 3, 4, 5, 6. Verify those things that God said would happen to those who obey him. Hello? Anyone home? Así que Dios dice lo que va a suceder con cualquiera, con los que le obedecen, con los que hacen lo que él quiere, lo que le iba a pasar. Véalo en Éxodo 19 y usted ve lo que iba a suceder con los que le obedecieren. Okay, entonces yo digo, usted tiene sus ojos, usted conoce historia, pues vea. You know, it's a simple thing to go and to look for yourself. Who are the priests to the world? ¿Quiénes son los sacerdotes del mundo? Okay? And that's not, and again, don't make the mistake. I know a lot of you Catholics are just loving this. And to be clear, I am not a Catholic. I know you guys are loving this, what I'm teaching. Again, I'm teaching straight across. I'm not teaching any church or preaching, building up a church belief or anything. No. I'm teaching the straight truth, the way it is. But understand that just because, remember that, yes, the priests are around the world and global, that's right, but it does reflect Christianity in general, okay? It doesn't mean that specifically the Catholic Church is the church, as you guys would have it. Again, that's just as close-minded as anyone else in any other religion. Don't make the same mistake. If there's anything you need to learn from me, is do not be close-minded like that. Don't think it's your church. Remember, it's not a church. It's a truth. It does not pertain to any earthly organization. The Church of Christ is a spiritual church. It is not if you targeted one church, you cannot target a church on the earth and say that is the church of God. You can't. The church of God is widely distributed amongst many different church denominations. Okay? And mostly, and a lot of them are at the Christian denomination. Are there saints that aren't within the Christian church? There has to be. There has to be. Because God will preserve, God will reserve. We just read it. So there has to be. Okay? So just understand, God is doing his thing. He's going to do his thing. Okay? But we have to be careful in identifying the truth and keeping ourselves, as truthful as we can humanly possibly be. Which always means to check and to balance your thinking. So again, the Christian church in general is known for teaching globally the things of God. Okay? Not the Jewish. That we know for sure. If you look at the Jew, you can see that they're not teaching anyone except themselves. So that's a true statement, right? They're not trying to win Gentiles for Jewishness. So that tells you everything right there. Absolutely not Exodus 19:3 at all. At 4 or 5, they're not being priests to the world. So they're not fulfilling it. The only ones are the Christians. The Christian church throughout history, Catholicism, yes, obviously, and throughout history, all the children that the Christianity bore are also out there preaching to the whole world, teaching the whole world. And I'm here today preaching and teaching to the whole world. That is the blessing that and the promise that was supposed to go to Israel, but they messed up. Not that we're better, not better. It's just that we have, because of their failure, we have moved up to the plate. It's our time to bat. We've been batting since way back when, and we're still at bat today. It's just simple as that. We're waiting. We are waiting for our Jewish brothers to wake up and smell the coffee. Nosotros estamos esperando que nuestros hermanos judíos despiertan y huelen el café, pero nosotros estamos en bate, bateando desde muchos siglos ya, con la bendición que estaba supuesto ser para ellos. No que nosotros somos mejores, no, no. Pero gracias por la caída de ellos, gracias a Dios que nos otorgó eso a nosotros. Yo estoy aquí hoy día por eso. So I'm only here teaching only due to the fact that they failed. Simple. It's as simple as that. Or else I would be sitting and listening to someone with a larger beard than I and being blessed by someone else of Israel, of the Jewish people, to teach me, which would be an honor and great blessing for me as it would for the whole world. But they messed up like anyone would. Anyone would have. If it wasn't for Jesus Christ, we weren't able to do anything either until Jesus Christ came. Okay, so let's put it that way. Hasta que Cristo vino, tampoco nosotros podíamos hacer nada. So eso es la franca verdad. So we have to admit the truth. That's the truth. So it's not that we're special. It's just that we were fortunate. That's it. We were fortunate. Así que no somos especiales nosotros, sino que nosotros somos afortunados. That's it. And I'm not wasting my fortune. Y no estoy gastando mi fortuna. Oh man. Oh man. Okay. So that the election hath obtained it, and the rest were blinded. So los demás están ciegos. But you notice how they are blind. Even this lady here who's adopted the law and keeping the Sabbath, she is also demonstrative of blindness. You see it here. For this is like scientific evidence being shown to you. You saw it here. You see when things came in, as they came in. I mean, all the evidence started pouring in, and proof actually within the construct of this broadcast is just amazing. And God is proving his point even through this broadcast. And I'm humbled by it. I'm just a servant here. I'm trying to do my best. I'm not good. I'm not good at all. I wish I was better. I wish there was something that I could do that can really make the point and get across to people's mind, their hearts. I just can only do what I do, and I do it as best I can. I've suffered from accidents that happen that really deter me and don't allow me to do all the things that I could do, that I know I could do if I could, but I can no longer do that. So, listen, I'm a broken vessel here. Um, and I hope and pray to God that it's just something that some light and grace can show through this and can bless somebody and can get somebody on the right path to truth. And that God can use them in a greater way than, in a great way, because I can't, he's not greater than I mean, what am I doing? But that's all I'm hoping. I'm hoping at least I could be a piece of turd, really. I've been doing a little farming here and there of late. So I value turd of late. You know that? A piece of turd is very valuable for a farmer. It's not what you eat, but it's what the plants that you do eat, and the plants that feed the cows that you do drink their milk, and that you do eat their flesh, and other foods that you eat. Yeah, they eat the turd. It's very important. It's gold. So that's what I'm happy to be a piece of turd. Can you believe that? Who would tell you that? And in a human sense, it hurts me to say that way. But if that's what I am, then so be it. I do it, and I accept it in the hopes that something can have nutrient with me, or from me, or by me, and be able to then bless the world and be of great use to Yahweh, to Jehovah, in a mighty way, from something, just one thing that I would share, or I have shared already. Maybe I shared something years ago. It's probably not even this. Probably stuff I shared years ago. Something. And someone that was touched by it. So that's all it is, folks. That's all it is. Seek the truth. You shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. So, according as it is written, God hath given them the spirit of slumber, eyes that they should not see, and ears that they should not hear, unto this day. Now, he's not talking about Gentiles. He's talking about law keeping and Sabbath keepers, because they're not keeping the Sabbath, and that they're not keeping the law, right? He's not talking about them. He's talking about those that are keeping the law. They're keeping the Sabbath. They're the ones. They're not the ones who are who are by grace. He's talking about all the rest. All the rest. Where he says, and the rest were blinded. See. So that is it. Now you can say truly, Israel hath not obtained that which he seeketh for, but the election hath obtained it, and the rest were blinded. So, and David saith, let their table be made a snare, and a trap, and a stumbling block, and a recompense unto them. Let their table. What does that mean? What was their table? ¿Qué es la mesa que David habla aquí? Deja que su mesa. What was their mesa? What was their table? It's what they were being served. What were they being served? The law. The law, the commandments. That's what they were being served. So it didn't change. In other words, God did not change anything. It's almost the same as Isaiah 28, where God is giving them a reprimand. And that's where you get the verses, I think it's verse 10, where it says precept upon precept, precept upon precept, line upon line. You've heard that. And it's a reprehension for their drunkenness. In other words, their sinfulness. They're going away from the truth. But he said he condemned them with what? With the truth, with the same stuff. There's nothing that was changed. It's just that the same thing will make you fall. It's the same stuff. See? That's the thing people need to realize. So when you realize that their table is the law, let their table is the law. Deja que su mesa es la ley, es guardar el sábado. Deja que su mesa se convierte en trampa. Okay, let me get this in Spanish so that I can share it with those the Spanish speakers out here. Déjame ver esto en español o convertirlo aquí para compartir con ustedes. So, it says that sea su mesa lazo y trampa, tropiezo y recompensa para ellos. So, su mesa es la ley, eso es lo que le estaban sirviendo. La ley, guarda esto, guarda el sábado. Sea su mesa lazo y trampa. So, la misma ley se convierte en trampa por el corazón de ellos. ¿Sí? So, when you have to understand that when you're sent, cuando tú estás haciendo Jeremías 31, 31, 32, you got to look at Jeremiah 31, 32 to understand what this actually is. And realize that the law on the Sabbath was given to Israel. That's why they failed. It became a snare and a trap, a stumbling block. Se convirtió en trampa y es un trampa. And that's where Satan, I'm going to let it go. That's where Satan is fooling most of you who are being talked to or talked into becoming Hebrew, or you're already been talked to that you're Hebrew, you're Israel, all this stuff. It's the devil's trying to make you lose your salvation. El diablo te está tratando que tú pierdes su salvación por estar metiéndose en algo que no conocen. Ustedes entienden. Mira, Jeremías 31 y 32 explica detalladamente. So it's explained with great detail in Jeremiah 31, 31, and 32. That's the table, the law, the Sabbath. Let it be made a snare and a trap. So you guys are getting snared and trapped by the law. Who would think? Who would think that? Who would ever think that the Ten Commandments, the law of God, and keeping the Sabbath could be a snare? You don't have to think it. It's in the Bible. Isaiah 28:10. Read it. Read Isaiah 28, the whole chapter. Read it. Lee Isaías 28, ese capítulo entero. Come here then and read it here. What we're reading is in Romans 11, like this law-keeping woman sent us to. It's just it's like they, even when they speak, they're condemning themselves. They don't realize what they're doing. They are blind. That's a blind person. It's blinded. They don't realize what they're doing and what they're saying. They're blinded to what they're seeing and they're referring others to. I'm glad they're doing it, because when you have vision, when you can see clearly. It doesn't affect us because we see clearly. But those who are blinded are also gullible. They believe whatever they say. And most people don't even bother looking. That's why I always look. You give me a verse, I'm going to look. Because I got eyes, I can see. I'm not going to take your word for it. So God had given them the spirit of slumber, eyes that they should not see, ears that they should not hear. And it's funny because most of the people that are Adventists, they hear, they're attracted to anything Sabbath. So then they start watching the program. And then the moment I start showing, the truth, they pull away, which is stupid. It's really stupid because, listen, even if you don't agree with what I said, it is not intelligent. An intelligent person would not go away. An intelligent person would stay and listen to all of the points. And, frankly, just sit down and make sure that they have reasons for not accepting what is being said. Because, down the road, like, are you trying to preach the truth to somebody? It would help. But we see that most people don't do that. Most people cannot stand to hear the truth. They just want to hear their religious ideas. They want to live in an echo chamber. La gente no quiere conocer la verdad, quieren oír su eco. Y por eso no aguantan la sana doctrina. That's why they can't withstand the sound doctrine. So again, you see, if you don't understand, if you're not an intelligent person, you don't understand what I just said. It doesn't make sense to you because in your life, you don't sit and listen to opposing views. But real intelligent people, they do. I'm letting you know what real intelligent people do so that you know. It doesn't mean you have to do it now because if you're not intelligent, you don't do it. It's not something that you can you can withstand. But intelligent people, I'm just giving you a fact. Intelligent people can sit and listen to opposing views because simply it's an exercise in challenging your own thinking. And it's a wonderful thing. I love it. I do it all the time. I mean, I'm in politics, I'm Republican. But if you see my Periscope account, I listen to the biggest Democrat broadcaster out there. I have him on my Periscope. I follow them. And the other day I was listening to his program, to their program, a talk show. He has different hosts, different speakers here and there. But I gained great insight in listening to the opposing side. That's a mark of intelligence, and I do it not to show that I'm intelligent. No, because intelligent people do that. You have to have a reality check. You have to make sure that what you're thinking and what you know is actually what is known and what is being thought. So I glean so much from listening to the opposition. It's a fantastic learning experience. So again, a lot of people are not at that level because you do have to be at a higher level. You have to have self discipline in order to be able to do that, right? So again, and so here it says, let's continue. Let their eyes be darkened, and that they may not see, and bow down their back always. That means they're excusing themselves out. Excuse me, I popped in, but I'm heading out. It's like what people do to the broadcast. They come in, oh, whoop, let me go out of here. This is what happens when people come in and out of this broadcast. Actually, unless they have to run to the bathroom and have a doctor's appointment, this is what goes on. Their eyes are darkened because they are not accepting the truth. They don't want to see the truth, so they close their eyes. And then they bow down their back away. You see? So they go, excuse me, I don't want to interrupt anybody, they leave. Some of them leave a comment ignorantly, and then they back away. Either way, they excuse themselves rather quickly. 11 says, I say then, have they stumbled that they should fall? God forbid. But rather, though their fall, salvation is come unto the Gentiles. Through their fall, salvation is come unto the Gentiles. What did I say? I said that before. Right? A través de la caída de ellos, la salvación ha venido ¿a quién? ¿A quién? A los gentiles. For to provoke them to jealousy. Así que lo provoca a celos. Now, if the fall of them be the riches of the world, and the diminishing of them the riches of the Gentiles, how much more their fullness? And then he goes on to say here that the Gentiles should not feel so great above the Jew, which is no one here, nothing here, as we've said, can be interpreted as being that nada que nosotros decimos aquí se debe interpretar como jactancia contra los judíos o sobre los judíos. No, como expliqué ya, nosotros somos humillados y apreciadores, aunque es un desafortunado evento, pero reconocemos que si no fuera por ese evento, por esa tropiezo de ellos, nosotros no tuviésemos esa bendición. Todavía hubiéramos sido bendecidos por sus enseñanzas. Lo único que ha pasado es que nosotros, en vez de ellos enseñarnos, nosotros estamos enseñando al mundo. That's resto. So what's happened is that we are appreciative of their fall, but we're not happy for them. In other words, we're not happy they fell. We're just fortunate that they fell, so that it has come to us the ministry of teaching the world. That's all. Because either way, we were going to be taught by them or by us. It just so happened that it was by us because they tripped. But we don't look at it. The other day they showed these. Now that we're in a political environment, they showed this guy. What's his name? I the name for Nader. Nader having an accident in his pants. And it looked like he was trying to get off the stage without dripping or something. It looked terrible. And they were looking at it as a funny thing, and I didn't. I looked at it as a sad thing. I don't look at people's failure and any funny as a comedy. I look at it as a very sad thing because it could be one of us. We all could have fallen, and we probably would have, given what they were given. Period. Simple. Que dado lo mismo que ellos fueron dados, nosotros hubiéramos caído también. Punto. No hay nada de reírnos, no hay nada de sentirnos mejor que ellos. Jamás, jamás. Oh, no, no. Dios no escoge cosas menores, en ese aspecto. Dios escoge personas o una nación que tiene bastante, mucho potencial y materia que Dios va a utilizar. Porque Dios es un Dios perfecto. So, I know that. Otra vez, Dios escoge lo mejor. So God will take the best qualities to God, not in man's eyes, but in God's eyes. So en los ojos de Dios, Dios escoge lo mejor. No a nuestra vista, sino a los ojos de Dios. Así que eso es lo que Dios vio en Noé. So God saw that in Noah as well, right? He chose Noah and Abraham y Abraham, así Israel. So yo no tengo ese, no que nos jactemos, and that's again where the apostle is going towards in the rest of that, and the rest of that verse there. All right, so let's go back. Let's see if we can get through this so we can end today. Um, it says that he never mentions the Gentile. Okay, he never mentions the Gentile, but she is mistaken. Exodus 19:3, 4, 5 does mention the Gentile. It does mention them. It mentions them as the world, for all the earth, as the earth, for all the earth is mine. So when you see that, realize that God is talking about other people and he says above all nations, sobre todas las naciones también. En esa cita, Éxodo 19:3, 4, 5 por ahí. Entonces dice sobre todas las naciones, no dice en vez de, y también menciona a las otras naciones. Esos son gentiles. Dios menciona a los otros gentiles. Lo que pasa es que ustedes no están entendiendo lo que Dios está diciendo. God mentions the Gentiles, just that you're not understanding what God is saying, really, because He's talking about Israel. Like, in other words, if I'm talking about to my family, si yo estoy hablando a mi familia, ¿por qué voy a hablar de otra gente? Otra gente viven, otra gente dominan y cosas en el mundo, seguro. Pero si te estoy hablando a ti, yo no voy a estar hablando de otra gente. Hay que entender eso. It's like a basic premise of communication. If I'm talking to you, I'm not going to be talking about other people. Why? Why would you think that I need to talk about other people? I'm talking to you. It doesn't mean that I don't love other people. It doesn't mean that I'm not trying to do things with the other folks. See? I'm talking to you so that the things that I want to do with the other folks can be had. But I don't have to tell you about other people. I'm telling you about yourself. You got to fix yourself first. You got to do this and this and this so that I can do what I want to do with the other people. So it's just the idea that we have to. It's like when we give the law or instruction to your kid, you don't have to explain to them, right? Now, if they fall, then we explain. But when we give the instruction, we just want you to handle. Isn't that what you want as a father? So our Father in heaven wants you to handle. That's why He gave it to you. Take care. Let's see if you can take care of it. And not only that, but He even says as much. If you look at Exodus, I think it's Exodus 16. Si veamos en Éxodo 16, Dios dice, voy a probarlos a ver si pueden guardar mis instrucciones. Read that in Exodus 16. I'm going to test you to see if you can follow my instruction. God tests Israel. Exodus 16 with the Sabbath issue before Exodus 19 and Exodus 20. But you see the desire of God to test to see if they can handle instruction. So notice that God is checking. See, the same thing you do as a parent. You want to check can your children follow instructions because they're going to need it in life. And they have to understand how to do things. So you give them instruction. Hey, handle this. And it's not an issue of them obeying you. It's an issue of them learning how to do things and learning how things work. See? Same thing that the Father wants to do. Es lo mismo que Dios quiere hacer como un padre que te da instrucciones para que tú aprendes cómo hacer las cosas y cómo las cosas trabajan. No es que tú seas obediente, haga tú, no piensa, no usa la cabeza que yo te di, yo te creé con un cerebro inmenso, pero no lo uses, solo haga lo que yo digo. Eso es ridículo, casi retardado. The thought is retarded even. Forgive me, I use that word, but it's just so, if you have a brain, God gave you the brain, God created it. Why wouldn't He want you to use it? Makes no sense. Makes no sense. And the funny, well, it's funny, but it's sad also that one of the big prophets from a big church got hit in the head. Just say. Así que uno de los profetas de una de esa iglesia grande, fue golpeado en la cabeza con una piedra. Un poco es triste, pero it's just amazing. Tú sabes lo que quiero inferir con eso. It's just too funny. Dice aquí, Jehová nunca habló ni nunca hablará con gentiles, which you already proven is incorrect. You can look at King Nebuchadnezzar to see that as a fact as well, and there's others. Hay que purificarse, obedecer la humanidad, entonces seremos injertados pueblo de Yeshua. So she's pointing out to be grafted in, and I point out later about the graft. So let's go looking at it. So I replied to her, says, certainly. Also, you have to understand why. Why, and cierto, I said that you're right, but you have to understand why. If you read Exodus 19, you will see the reasoning of Yahweh. And then I point out what I said. 19:5. Now, if you hear me, my voice, and keep my covenant, you will be my special treasure or my peculiar treasure above all nations. And 3, because the whole earth is mine. Mine is all the earth, he says. He's not talking about rocks and rivers, and God is talking about people right here. You have to go by the context. He's talking about people. That's the subject. Okay, so he is, again, people don't understand English or grammar. You don't understand what's happening. So Aquí está hablando de gente, no está hablando de piedra, de río, de montaña, está hablando de gente, porque mía es toda la tierra. ¿Okay? Vosotros seréis mi especial tesoro sobre todos los pueblos, porque mía es toda la tierra. See? So you will be my special treasure above all nations because all the earth is mine. That's what he says. And that means that all the nations belong to God. Everyone belongs to God. There ain't no one that doesn't belong to God. But you, Israel, the house of Jacob, and the children of Israel, you, because you hear me, because you keep my commands, you will be a special treasure. So, what is the regular treasure of God? Everyone else. Everyone is a treasure to God. See, that's how you know everyone is a treasure because there's only two groups of people: the house of Jacob, children of Israel, and all the other nations. So, if they are a special treasure, then all the other nations are what? They're a regular treasure. They are treasure, but they're not the special treasure. So then you have to ask yourself, why? What makes them the special treasure? Why are they special more than over all the nations? And then it tells you why if you keep reading. Si sigues leyendo, te dice por qué. Y vosotros me seréis un reino de sacerdotes. En hebreo también la palabra quiere decir príncipe, pero no importa. ¿Qué necesita sacerdote? ¿Qué necesita príncipe? You know, in the Hebrew, it says, and you shall be unto me a kingdom of priests. In the Hebrew, the word also means princes. But in both cases, priests or princes, what do you need? You need people. But if everyone is a kingdom, and in the kingdom is a priest or prince, then who are the people? For all the earth is mine. See, you have to understand what God is saying. Tienen que entender lo que Dios está diciendo. So, I point out the first point that the state of Israel is conditional. Number one, it's not that they are special, they are more special than anyone else. No, they are not more special than anyone else, except that if they hear God's voice and keep his commands, they will then be more special than everyone else. Because otherwise, if they don't do that, they will be like everyone else. Simple as that. I mean, I don't see what people don't understand. Y los judíos primariamente, and Jews also should understand this, right? Clearly. El tesoro de Jehová, the treasure of Jehovah, reflects that Israel reaches a homogeny with his divine purpose. That's why they become a special treasure, because then they are fulfilling a special purpose that Yahweh has, that Jehovah has. Entonces están cumpliendo un propósito particular que tiene Jehová. You understand it? So they're not special because they're special. They're special because they fulfill a purpose that God has. He has a plan, and they will fulfill that role that God wants so dearly. Así que los judíos están supuestos a completar un papel en el mundo que Dios quiere mucho, mucho, mucho. Y por eso son especiales. Si oyen su voz, si guardan su pacto. And the third point in this is that all the nations belong to Yahweh, to Jehovah. So the plan that Yahweh has to be with everyone. Así que el plan de Dios que Dios tiene que ser para todo el hombre, todos los humanos, porque toda la tierra es mía. See? This is the proper way to see his verse, to read it, and to see all the points that he is showing, because he showed all those points. Because again, if it's not that way, he didn't have to say what he said. What he said is what's throwing everything off from whatever you guys are thinking because of what God said. It's not what I say, it's what God said. Because God's not saying what you're saying. You're saying something that you're twisting what God said. God didn't say that. God is saying what I'm saying. It's very clear. You guys ignore it because it doesn't fit your narrative. Así que la gente que son hebreos esto, hebreo otro, ellos ignoran lo que Dios está diciendo aquí en Éxodo 19. It's unfortunate. Sacerdotes ministran sobre laicos. So the priests minister over laymen. How can all of Israel be priests, a kingdom of priests, without laymen? See that? Yeah, and people can say what they want to say. Yeah, if possible, we can have all priests, like a priest in a monastery. They're all priests. They're all priests. There's no layman inside the monastery, but their whole work and mission is for the people outside the ministry. It's just ridiculous. Some people want to reason things and they get too ridiculous. That is also bad reasoning. The priest has one function, and it's to serve the people and bring them to God, period. Así que los sacerdotes tienen un propósito de servir a la gente y traerlos a Dios. Eso es el papel de sacerdote. No es ser sacerdote porque uno es sacerdote, un título. So, and then I finished this statement with the Gentiles in the plan of Jehovah, all those laymen, or they were those laymen, and they still are in either case, because he's still trying to reach all the Gentiles to accept Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior. But that was supposed to be the job of Israel. Así que el trabajo de Israel estaba supuesto a traer a la enseñanza de Jesucristo a todo el mundo. Eso no fallaron a Dios y entonces llegó a nosotros, los gentiles, a traer el evangelio a nosotros mismos. So we had to do it for ourselves. Okay? And there's a lot to be said in that, but we don't have time right now to get to the other teachings, and there's a lot of other things that also we have to take care of. Okay, so Ruth got this other lady again continues. I'm in agreement with you that the final plan is for all the earth, but it's not for the Gentiles. It's for the people who get grafted into Israel. What I'm going to do as she continues with this grafting into Israel, and I'm going to continue on this next week because I've been on for a long time already. It's 2 hours and 30 minutes, and I really got like the rest of this teaching to do, and getting into the branches that are grafting in. So I'm going to do that for next week. So para la semana que viene yo voy a continuar este análisis. Y entonces vamos a hablar específicamente de lo injertado. Because my point here is that these fellows, they apologize using the grafting issue, but they do not understand grafting at all. Estas personas empiezan a hablar ahora de lo injertado, pero lo que pasa es que no entienden lo que es injertado. Lo que es algo injertado no saben nada, porque no estudian. Solo estudian Biblia. Pero la vida empieza con Dios creando los cielos y la tierra. Yo estudio también los cielos y la tierra. So, you see, the problem is that the first thing God says in the Bible that they study, because they study Bible. Nosotros estudiamos Biblia. They study Bible. They know the Bible. But they don't know the heavens and the earth. See, when God said in the beginning, first thing he says, God created the heavens and the earth. That told me I need to study the heavens and the earth too. And so now I know what the grafting is because I understand the heavens and the earth. See, so I know what the real teaching of the grafting is. They're using it wrong. See, again. That's what happens when you ignore the things God says. He did say it in the beginning, but you ignore the things he said. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming by. I hope again my wish and desire is that someone learned something from anything that's said. Tomorrow I will be teaching part two of how to verify truth. If you wherever you're looking at, you can look at the previous teaching. Should be how to verify truth. That's the beginning, part one. So you want to look at that tomorrow. I go live Sunday at 12:30 in the afternoon here Eastern Standard Time, and I will do part two of that teaching, how to verify truth. Very important because it applies to everything, education, anything in your life. You want to know that what the way you're thinking is the right way. Usted quiere saber que la manera que tú estás entendiendo, viendo las cosas, es la manera correcta. So watch the teaching, vea la enseñanza de la semana pasada y vea la enseñanza parte número 2 mañana, cómo verificar la verdad. I'll be teaching that tomorrow starting at 12:30. So tune in. Another 2 hours, and I'll be fighting this nasal thing I got going on here. But we'll fight the good fight. Until next time, take care and God bless you. Thank you for coming and sharing and joining us for a little bit.